Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 213th episode of our first YouTube run through the House of Light expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the Archaeologist. For those of you who don't remember, I am the librarian of Hush House, and this journal will record what arose from my crime and my curse. The archaeologist's dearest wish when they came to the house was to record a history where their crime could be forgiven or redefined, but you can complete the game by recording any history. You might wish to begin your studies with the Skolakosophy wisdom. I opened a tomb and found too late that it was a prison. The plague I released is now my shadow, or perhaps I am its reflection. It is too late to set matters right, but it is never too late to protect the future from the past. In Hush House I can do no harm. Perhaps I can even make amends. Now, we were working on quite a few lessons. If I recall, I'm going to be getting a scent next for to level up spices and savors. I maybe would like to double check that though, because I am also I'm reading a few other books. I have just a couple of concerns in terms of whether or not I'm going to have all of the memories that I need, but I'll set that aside for now. The easiest thing for me to do at the moment is just let the timers run down, because I don't think I have any actions that I can take from the last episode, or like from the last episode. I think I locked up all of my different stations, and then the big question, is going to be, can I organize my elements of the soul in a way that I don't close off options? I think I'd worked it out that I could get 3 upgrades done, but that I couldn't do all of the lessons in one day. Anyway, we will set that aside and make some progress. Better now. One of the other challenges here is that I can, it's a little delicate in terms of which specific elements of the soul are useful to me. What I may start doing is just counting, so like I have a lot more Trist than is obvious. So I might start counting the pluses in the total. All right, the skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. So, we're still waiting a little bit on the books, so if I'm going to maximize my time, the Watchful Potted... Now's the time to look at the Watchful Potted Plant. Not everything needs eyes. Let's do... I think I can get away with the shaft in this case. Or, no, I don't need to... Investigate the object. You won't use this up or consume it by doing this. Maybe want to be a little careful on how much of the Trist I'm using, for the simple reason that it's my only source of moon, and I do have a few, what is it? Snow Stories, Serpents and Venoms. Oh no, it's just Snow Stories and Serpents and Venoms. So technically I have enough with these two. But still, it's worth being careful. The Radical Measure, Manifesto for Experimental and Dangerous-Sounding Invocatory Poetry, written sometime in the 19th century by Dr. Aaron Peel, a notoriously inconsistent and incoherent text, apparently produced in a tearing hurry. The hours have little time for poetry, Dr. Peel avers, but they have a tremendous amount of time for poets. As the rose opens, Dr. Peel explains, an enduring memory opens to the horizon. This is a way of saying something that cannot otherwise be said, and is best only written with one's eyes firmly closed. The Black Book of Brittany, a volume of ink lore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The black flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree run deep, and they may not be hidden forever. The black flower, spoken of as a doom or guise, can be held at bay with the last ink of power brewed from the pale mixture in the presence of sufficient winter with the arts of containment. Deaths and Their Evasions. Father Stanislav John Schaller writes of the means and limitation of passage between the orders of the Mansus. No long names hours. Unusually, Father John has written this book in Fucine, for he says a special secrecy. He speaks very cautiously of the exceptions that can sometimes be made to the edicts of Chancel and Calyptra, and hints at the means by which he successfully returned a lantern long to flesh. Schaller mentions most cautiously of all that he has been permitted to see a book that speaks more deeply on the matter, but that it was surrendered into the shadow of a covenant stone of the watchman's tree. It can be retrieved if the 99th wink is reserved under the edict's liminal. A Seventh Voice, Samuel Savage's cycle of comic poems about a band of players who double as footpads seeking a seventh member. Sir Sea-Snatch is distracted by Mistress Twitchshell kissing Mistress Netherpearls and fails to see Master Magglepie making off with the players' funds. The whole enterprise almost ends in disaster when Mistress Wandereye's family insults her costume and she burns down their house in a fit of pique. But the day is finally saved by the Seventh Voice, a wandering bookmonger who returns the band's lost music. The Victory of Crowns, erratic accounts by one Aaron of the hunting and possible consumption of supposed immortals by shadowy assassins, published in the late 19th century. The assassins are, according to Aaron, the agents of a power called the Coronel, a soldier of the Secret Masters. The accounts date back to Roman times. Aaron's scholarship is dubious, but she, writes pithily. Incidents of sudden and violent death are interspersed with aphorisms. Hours don't dream, long try not to. And an introduction to the histories. The 17th century mystic and antiquarian Claude Hersault describes divergent incidents in 5 major histories. The prologue warns at length of the iniquities of one Julian Cosley, a former colleague who Hersault now describes darkly as a worm of worms. It seems Cosley advised Hersault early in the writing of the book, but Hersault later became suspicious. Hersault identifies blood, silver, design, and the worms as the central axes of each of the histories, and claims that the so-called second history is the true one. The Kukurbit Prisoner Records, 1928, accounts by Governor Collar's private secretary of interventions and experiments in the last years of the Kukurbit prison, focusing particularly on the hill children, wild wood things that have found a shape in the physical world. Something called a Singlefoot, a horned mountain dweller, is brought back from some kind of embassy to the Grove of Green Immortals. Collars expresses his irritation that Gervinus Van Loren refuses to assist in its confinement. The Singlefoot somehow conjures an earthquake that cracks the tower and enables its escape. Collars determines that it should not have been permitted to dream while kept beneath the earth. It had access to sufficient scale aspect to use its arts of hill and hollow to develop an old moment into an earthquake name. He mandates above-ground confinement for all hill children prisoners in the future. Against the Sisterhood of the Knot and the foulness of their depraved customs. Hieronymus Pseudo-Hypnotomachus wrote this furious screed about the sinister influence of the Sisterhood of the Knot on his own Church of the Unconquered Sun. Hieronymus claims that the powers served by the Sisterhood of the Knot made an arrangement. The Thunderskin loved the ewe, and the Grail destroyed him, as restitution for the destruction of the Axe's loved ones. Hieronymus's writing becomes incoherent with rage at this point. Hieronymus recovers his composure, eventually, to describe how the Thunderskin entered the Mansus through the Peacock Door. This, Hieronymus insists, is abomination upon abomination, but then that most abominable of doors has always been an abomination. Okay, so there's going to be a bit of organizing that I need to do here. I will first of all set aside the pattern. So first of all, let's grab any of the forge stuff that I need. So that would be pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the 6th will arrive in 21 seconds. So I'm feeling okay about that. I guess the next question would be, Sights and Sensations was going to be what I used to level up Snow Stories. Right, okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm still short one. Technically, I can employ the Old Wound or the Wormwood Dream, and I may actually wind up doing that, but I will. I'll wait to see what the actual need is. Now, I seem to recall I was going to make some kind of a decision about, I think it was the Applebright Euphonies in this case. Because now I'm at the point where I should start... Oh, I'm sorry. The Stolen Secret and the Bittersweet Certainty will actually take me over the edge on these. So I've got one more than I need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I could use Great Signs and Great Scars with Pentiments and Precursors. Or I could use... Okay. So it's Snow Story, Serpents and Venoms, Pentiments and Precursors, and Applebright Euphonies. Both Pentiments and Precursors and Serpents and Venoms will need... I think both of them are actually going to need things I can't give up. So let's make my life a little easier to start off with. So we'll set aside the Whist for the Sights and Sensations. Actually, I'll make it even easier, and I'll start using these upgraded ones. So this is for Spices and Savors. This is going to be for Sights and Sensations. So Serpents and Venoms, that's going to be Moon and Scale. And I suppose the argument here would be if I needed Moon. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Moon already, which is pretty easy to run with this scale. Okay, so I think this more or less makes up my mind for me here. Whereas Pentiments and Precursors, if I think about the Grail and Scale that I can get, so we've got a Fear, we've got Satisfaction, we've got Gossip, we've got Hindsight. I mean, that's 4 of the 6, so it's not impossible, but... Alright, but I am going to focus on Serpents and Venoms next, which is what the plan was anyway. So sorry to spend the time on that, but I kind of want to make sure I get my ducks in a row before I commit too much. So, this plus Trist will go towards Serpents and Venoms. And then this Arab will go for Applebright Euphonies. I may still try to do more, but this is... Okay. This is kind of my best shot with what I've got right now. I'm also going to take a quick second to see what the Hive's Lament looks like. 30 seconds, so I definitely need to smarten up, but we should be fine. Okay. So let's focus on... Sorry. I actually do need to think this through. Okay, so in 21 seconds, we lock this in. 30 seconds from there, we lock these in. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so we shouldn't have to worry about duplicating any of these. If I do, though, I'm sunk, and this is basically it for the lessons. So, to make sure I make the most of the day, we're going to go to the phonograph first. Um, okay, so that's 2 of 6. Three of 6. I'm focused on moon right now, but I feel like I'm missing a... Nope, that doesn't make sense because I'm already going to have the hindsight. Okay, sorry for the silence. I need to get my head on straight again. Okay, so we're taking care of serpents and venoms here. Right, so moon and scale. So we've got hindsight right now. Secret histories, 2. Or sorry, stolen secrets. Fear, which is 3. Okay, 4. Again, I feel like I'm missing books. I should check the bridge. Don't remember which of these. Okay, 5. Yep. I think I actually have forgotten which one this gives me. I'm just gonna quickly look at my Excel sheet for this. Oh, it is salt. Okay. I know there is a, what was this one? I probably should have just done it through process of elimination, but... Yeah, the order is completely messed up here, but... That's fine. However, I do need to double check now. Okay, so yeah, we are doing the Queen's turn. And again, I apologize, but I do want to make sure, just because I'm limited on elements of the soul. Okay, hindsight, stolen secrets, fear, contradiction, salt. Why do I think I have 4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Six. All right, that was a lot more trouble than that was worth, but so let's like I said, pentiments and precursors we're sort of throwing under the bus for this one. So my best bet here, can probably take advantage of, I'm going to leave the Faust aside. It could be anything actually, but we'll use the Faust for now. Okay, so that's 2 of 6. Three of 6. Okay, we have just enough. That also means there's no room for mistakes. I don't think I can use this now. Trying to remember how to get the wistful air. There we go. And I guess I still need the cheerful ditty. But I'm feeling a little less confident that I'll be able to make it. Well, shows what I know. Alright, as always, it doesn't hurt to double check what clever way can I generate a satisfaction? You know what, let's leave it aside. It does mean that I'm going to have to wait some time to get the Applebright Euphonies, but I think that's one I think I can relax a little bit on getting that last memory. If I'd organized it a little bit better, I might have been able to do something with the governor's phonograph, but it's not really worth doing too much rearranging. Okay, I definitely want to be timely on this. The sense of awareness persists, but the plant remains immobile, unsettling but harmless. It doesn't even have thorns. This, by the way, if you want to be really negative in terms of this approach, you can sort of say that this is maybe the one instance where, like, my decision to level up the elements of the soul has potentially held me back, right? Because with a number of these, I would technically be able to take more actions than I have today. Now, in practice, actually maybe the other way of thinking about it is, except maybe for the advantage I will get with the sealed vault, it's also kind of debatable as to whether or not I've crafted something new or something that I needed as a result of these higher skills. But I don't know, like I also think, I remember for a while people were kind of curious about that mechanic, and it's one that I haven't used very often. And that, I mean, after I did, I kind of did it for a lark originally, just to kind of see, you know, what it's like to play the game without that. I don't want to call it a crutch, but like I can recall how when I first played this game, the idea that I needed to like grab as many elements of the soul that I can, and like I need to get those numbers up, I think about that very differently now. And you know, I think people have different ideas in terms of how to play, and I can see how some people might prefer to have a lot of elements of the soul, whereas other people would prefer to have those really sort of deep or those really highly developed elements of the soul. But for the most part, I just haven't really felt the need. I think probably what it comes down to is that I like the relaxed pace of this game. And so recognizing that, except for Numa, which you'll notice is kind of the thing that I'll move entire seasons around for to try and accommodate. But other than Numa, there's really no cost to just taking your time on any of this stuff. So one consequence of that will be that because I feel that way, it's like, okay, well, you know, I can just wait it out, right? You know, I'll wait until I can craft that higher level skill that higher level memory and so on. Because in the end, like there isn't that much of a cost. There isn't that big of a worry that I'm somehow missing out on something. Whereas, you know, I think a lot of people understandably want to make progress. They especially, you know, we'll have a finite amount of time, so we want to make sure that particularly our leisure time is being spent in a good way. And so where you translate, you know, a good use of leisure time to progress, right, to seeing some sort of tangible measure of that progress in the game, yeah, you know, you're going to want to see a number move up or a room get unlocked or something like that. Okay, you know what? I messed this up a little bit. I believe I was going to use the whist on this one. So when I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Improved the skill to level 7. All right, let's get some books read, and I'll be a little more careful in laying these all out. A Tower Falls. The phonograph is packaged in glossy amethyst purple card with the words "A Tower Falls" in 9 languages on both sides. There's no other identifying information at all. A recording of uncertain origin, inexplicably compelling poetry recorded by a speaker with a rasping, rumbling, impossibly deep voice in a language called Vak, which probably isn't spoken by more than a few dozen living scholars. The poem speaks of a 4-winged war, a 4-mouthed king, a 4-rayed sun, a 4-cornered stone. It speaks of a tide-washed hunger of the heart. It speaks lastly of its own conclusion, when it might be spoken of in dreams before a deep door by a messenger of histories. That one goes here. Wistful air, let it rise in head and heart. I'm getting this wrong. There we go. Tiddly tiddly tum ti diddle tum. On Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Loss, an account of an occult romance. A certain Para, son of Aaron, claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Damascene branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who rejected their past and future. The laws of the house forbade Matthias to love. The customs of the wood forbade the Imago to remain. So he conjured her a final time, when she had uncovered the shears of Alcapura, and she suffered him to cut the wings from her back, so that she might remain, and he suffered her to cut the parts which hold man's seed, to keep them from the detestable act. This was love in all its blood and joy. We have cast out Matthias from the house. In the Cradle of the Roots, Matthias and the Imago left their names, and though their names were lost, they found their name-day riddles. This we recall in Solution and Separation, so that in the presence of the moth our memories may become our futures. Do this wisely, in memory of the name and the long who gave up their past that they might be together forgotten. "1,000 threads, the fate supplications of the matriarch of the well, recorded in darkness by her weavers and her daughters. The well is long choked with rubble and ashes, the matriarch long gone. She predicted her own end, even as these supplications were recorded, but their power remains. Speak these supplications before an altar whose roots have drawn from a sacred spring. Perhaps another root will rise towards daylight." The Book of Thrones, a legend of the Shadowless Empire transcribed by Alexander Peterhans from the annals at a secret shrine in Anatolia. In the first and greatest history, a subject of the Shadowless Empire of Persia travels to the west, to the kingdom of the Persids. There he becomes a protege of the tutelary Persid deity, the scarred man who lives in the dark. He returns after 7 years to put his skills at the service of the Shadowless Empire, becoming their golden general. After many years of peace, the heirs of the Persids move against the King of Kings in the Shadowless Empire. The Golden General will not take up arms against the blood of his mentor until the King of Kings whispers a great secret of betrayal in his ear. He breaks his sword, forswears his oath to both Empire and the Scarred Man, and enters the temple behind the world, leaving his life behind. From History to Eternity, a contraband manual of the Inks of Revelation. The author explains in a brief foreword that she is a high-ranking officer in the Agency of the Duties, and that though she supports its mission, she has concerns about the long-term consequences of its work. All histories braided into a golden loop, a shining ascent to eternity. I never imagined I could be afraid that there might be too few truths. I could be wrong, but I'd like to at least leave one door ajar. Ichor Auroral can be brewed into an Incastum Terminale associated with the second history, using Inks of Revelation techniques with Rose aspect. The author warns that this is exceptionally difficult, since these techniques aren't aligned with Rose. But that's why I'm hoping the door will stay ajar, even once all the others are closed. I wish you luck. So this should be enough for us to level up the Edict's Inviolable, but I do want to see what else I have to work with here. Cool. Okay, so we're going to move the confounding parable down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. The Queen's Turn, a 16th century translation of the Barrowchild's account of Lagia's turn, when Lagia, the Queen unsated, was offered the opportunity to enter the service of the Hours of the Triple Knot, as long as she repudiated her brother-lover Antaios. Lagia accepts, setting aside the arts the low red sun associated with Antaios. She bargains, however, for freedom for her daughters. The Hours of the Triple Knot accept casually, knowing that Lagia has devoured her daughters, but wily Lagia has decided, in the secret hollow of her heart, that she will adopt any who ask, if they can prove their fierceness. The traditions described here, the ones generally described as hill and hollow, are associated with Lagia before her turn, but now that she is a name of the Red Grail, they might also be safely used before an altar of the Triple Knot. Unhatched hymns, hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Menascate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next. Madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Menascate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the Reflections more puzzlingly celebrates the Menascate as sister of Janus, mother of Shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. I guess technically we could use the Savage hymn for the Serpents and Venoms as well, but no need. The Intimations of Skin, fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Fredrik Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the names of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory, a lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly, a lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. The lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, and the growth name is already partially engulfed, but it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. So, just to be clear, we've got Serpents and Venoms, which we're going to level up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then Applebright Euphonies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which actually leaves me with 2 elements of the soul left over. I don't think I'm going to be able to make anything with the Tryst. What is the CC did today? And of course, the talk verb has already been accounted for. You know what? I'm going to just leave this aside until I just feel a little more comfortable knowing that I've got an element of the soul set aside just in case something goes wrong. I also want to double check the guest list. I'm going to write this down. So all right, so I mean, we might as well, if we're not going to be using the desks, I might as well get the invitations. Going to be a little... Oop. Now I just need to post it. It's going to be a little dry while we wait for that to come up. I've also completely forgot the... I've been really absorbed in making these timers work that I've completely ignored the... I've completely ignored the clock. I should have finished like 10 minutes ago. But we'll wrap up the day, and then we'll be well positioned for the next, that won't work. Skill is now level 7, its power aspects have also increased. Let's do Serpents and Venoms first. Actually, let's just double check that both of these work as intended. Yep. Not this one, though. Oh. Yep. I almost blew it. So it's very good that I didn't give up that Tryst like I was about to, because... wouldn't have been able to do this. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Improved the skill to level 7. So I should be able to turn this Faust into some money. I mean, or I can go to the Gull Colony, but the catch there will be I potentially get a sound, which I can't, or memory rather, which I can't keep overnight. All right, I think I will leave it there. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how today turned out. The biggest, sorry, a second. So I think one of the biggest things that I will, or sorry, let me reset that. So basically, as far as the lessons are concerned, by the end of today, the only one that we need to worry about is pentiments and precursors, which is the Grail and Scale. And actually, funnily enough, I have a feeling this is going to be just a tricky one for me to handle, regardless of the day. It just happens to be that this is the last one. So I don't know. I'll have a bit of a think about it, but we should be able to see this through. Already working on the invitations for the Oriflamme heist, which tells me, I suppose there's one of two things that I can do. I can open up the last room, or there is one more secret of the house that I can uncover. But I think probably we open up the next room. But that's the order I feel a little bit better about anyway. And then, yeah, the only thing I'll say right now is I believe of the Newman, the only one related to my character right now is that first one we got, Towards a Fun. Well, I mean that's the book, but the Newman within. But I mean, there's not much. That one I'm just going to defer to the game on, I think. But at this point, just getting everything is probably the higher of the two priorities. So I guess the thing that'll be funny is it'll feel like such a letdown. Not really a letdown, but like it's going to feel relatively tame to just get back to the books. But I don't know. We'll save that. Anyways, thank you again for another extended episode. We will wrap up today's events just at the very start on the next episode, and then we can do new things. But until then, thanks for watching, and take care.